Hello, everybody, and welcome. Welcome to our next edition of our series of webinars here at MAPAL. My name's Harry Bennett. I'm a global account manager here at MAPAL, and I'm joined by Peder Lindencrona. Did I pronounce
Good going,
that
Harry.
Cool.
Perfect.
And Peder is our Chief Office Director at MAPAL and is also the founder of the compliance application that we're going to chat to you more about today. How are you, Peder?
Fine, thanks. And you?
Yeah, really well, thanks. Good. Apart from the crazy weather that we've got going on,
Yeah.
I think
It's minus 6 in Stockholm, so yeah.
-6. Wow. I think we were talking the other day, and you had 20 degrees on Sunday and -6 today. So
yeah.
Scotland's not much different. So yeah, we're here today to talk about simplifying daily hospitality operations. And I'm going to share my screen with everybody. Can we see that okay? Great. So compliance, Peder, what exactly is the idea?
Yes. Do we have some introduction slides on that one, or is it? Yeah.
We do actually, yes.
Maybe you should. Yeah, no worries. In case you want to introduce yourself first, Harry, before I take over.
Yes, of course. Great. So we'll introduce ourselves first of all. My name's Harry. As I said, I'm the global account manager here at MAPAL. And my background spans across about 20 years of hospitality. So creating, launching, operating successful hospitality concepts, working in bars, restaurants. And I just have a real passion for it, a real passion for learning, development, and the industry itself. And I love working with clients to work in new solutions and help them with solutions on solving the issues through hospitality technology. And another thing just to mention is I did head up the drinks focus side of Hospo Live. So when we went into lockdown, we put together an initiative essentially to engage hospitality workers throughout COVID, throughout lockdown. So very, very proud of that. And yeah, good to be here today. Peder, I'll hand over to you.
Thank you. So Peder Lindencrona, as you so correctly pronounced, Harry. So I'm more of an IT nerd background, working with my own companies and in other companies, but kind of joined the not so dark side of hospitality. I really like seeing hospitality people use what I'm a part of building. So that's kind of my driver. I'm not a hospitality person from the start, but I really come to like the market and that environment. So I've been spending in hospitality and retails like 20 years. So that's my background.
Great. So compliance. This is a question I was going to ask.
Exactly.
What exactly is the idea?
Yeah. So it actually came from my background being running around in a lot of stores and other places. I was working for a point of sale, a software company. And this was like 10, 15 years ago. So the only IT that was kind of present in a restaurant or in a retail store was actually the point of sale of the till. The rest was just pen and paper. And as an IT guy working in finance before, I was kind of confused about where are all the tools. People like, yeah, we have the tools, we have the pen and paper, right? So that was basically the starting point for a compliance solution. Was it has to be a better way to support all those people than just pen and paper. Pen and paper is, of course, it's a great thing. It's easy to use, or at least it was. Current generation, 30 years younger than me, are more like into phones, but at that time it was the go-to solution. Sure. It's easy to change, but there's also a lot of problems that IT is quite good at handling. So that was the starting point for compliance. Like you see these big dashboards with all the pen and paper. Could we get that in one place instead of spread out? That would really help the people on the floor. That was the background, basically.
Great. And what are some of the biggest problems that you've seen dealing with pen and paper?
Yeah, it's if you would have asked me like 5 years ago, maybe 8, it would have been only the problems that you kind of know of. That it's very hard to send out updates from headquarters, because once you send out a change, it kind of have to send out a new change immediately after, and you're never in sync. So you can't really control or give people the right tools to do the right things. And it's also really tricky to follow up. You have to be on the site to follow up, which is not ideal. And nowadays, I think also the problem is that a lot of people working in hospitality, they're not that good at pen and paper and Excel anymore. They're very good at TikTok and Instagram, but pen and paper is not their thing anymore. So it's actually even worse with pen and paper now than it was a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I completely agree. What sort of size of businesses do you feel like the compliance application is best suited to?
Yeah, I think it's when our idea was to target or help like multi-site businesses that deliver food and service, and so it was about getting all the pieces together in one simple to use app. So people already have procedures and routines in place for food safety. They have for operational tasks. They usually have audits. So all of that is kind of established. And then maybe even have automation like checking temperatures of coolers and freezers automatically, but they're not connected. So it's still, even if it's still digitized in different places. So you still have the pen and paper problem that's scattered.
Yeah,
So
sure.
so in terms of number of sites, I think it's not really about the number of sites. It's about how mature your processes and your ways of working are. And that's usually when you have one site. I mean, you can control everything. You spend a lot of hours on the floor. You can see and can do everything. When you grow, you get more like limited in time. So 5, 6, 7, 10 sites at that time. I mean, it's hard to be everywhere, and that's where a solution starts to bring some real value. So I think it's maybe a long answer to a short question, but I'd say 10,
No.
15 sites, something like that.
Okay, great. Brilliant. And I mean, it all sounds very, very theoretical, right? And of course, you mentioned at the start that you are actually an IT guy.
Yeah.
And I guess that I'm an ops guy. And the question for me is, what does it all mean? So why don't we look into that a little bit? So Espresso House. Many people that are watching this webinar may not have seen this brand before. They might not know who Espresso House are. I have spent a lot of time in Sweden. My partner is actually Swedish, so I'm lucky enough to have visited espresso houses, and I know that I'm very aware that espresso house is on almost every corner in Scandinavia. Similar to maybe the likes of Costa or Pret, these places in the UK. So tell us a bit more about them and tell us how they use the tool.
Yeah. It's one of our oldest customer. I think we started to work with them in 2014, and it's a fast-growing company. When we started, there were about 180 coffee shops in Sweden, so 180, and now they're about 550 in
Wow.
4 countries. I think Germany, Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Finland, 5. Yeah, so they're growing about 300% over that time span. And when they went to this kind of expansion journey, it was really important for them to kind of course, expand quickly, but not, keep the costs down while doing that, especially on the kind of headquarter level, and also to secure the brand standard. So if you have that establishment rate, you really need to make sure that each opening is kind of really opens an espresso house and it feels like an espresso house the first day. So that was their big challenge, just accelerating while keeping quality. So that was their challenge, and of course they had all their procedures, ways of working were quite established. So it was easy for us, just digitize what they had, which is a good starting point.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so they already did, of course, they did the food safety stuff. They did the opening and closing checks. They did, check campaigns, planograms, things like that. But they also have a very good way of auditing, where each person, regardless of their position in the company, are visiting the sites on a regular level. I think it's quarterly. So the CEO does coffee shop audits, so does the item manager, and so does the purchase manager. So they do all that together, and the audits are done in our tool, and the results are immediately available to everyone, and all the action points are kind of sent through the system to the coffee shop manager, so they can track in real time that all the things that they find are fixed according to their standards. So they have a really kind of it's not really the system, it's the way they work, and also that they incentivize it. So we measure what we call compliance score, like how well do you perform your tasks, and that actually affects this girl barista salary.
Wow,
according to if they execute according to the guidelines.
it's very interesting. And I guess then if you could select sort of one thing that Espresso House did really well, what would that be?
It will be like it's actually their CFO or CIO at that time was also an IT nerd, likes data a lot. So they're very data driven,
Right.
but they really, it's not for headquarters, for everyone. So it's about everyone has access to the same checklists, the
Mhm.
same results, the same data, and actually tying that together in one operational way of working with the system, the metrics, and the content. It sounds easy, but it's not
Yeah.
to
No,
get that to work together. I think that's their success story.
brilliant. Great. And then if we move on to another one of your clients, Bastard Burgers, again, probably not a name that people in the UK know. I think Sweden is from what I've seen on my travels anyway, Sweden is full of gourmet burger joints.
Yeah.
Another reason why I love to visit. But tell us more about Bastard Burgers themselves and how they specifically use the compliance application.
Yeah, they had a bit of a different starting point. Espresso House, they were over 180 sites. So they had, I mean, for them it was just the next step on their journey. Basta Burgers were more, we got in touch with them very early. I think there were 4 restaurants or maybe 5.
Oh, really?
So it's really, when you get that kind of contact, it's like, okay, are you sure that we are the right supplier for you at this time?
Yeah.
Because managing 4 sites, is it worth to build all these support tools and everything? It might just be better to do what you do and do it well.
Mhm.
Um, but we were talking then, but the management team of Basta Burgers are really experienced from other, high growth multi-site businesses. So they were like, I understand you, Peter, but we're not a 5-site restaurant. We're a 50-site multi-brand, but we're not there yet. So the goal is clear. We're going to be 50 quite quick.
Okay.
And that means to do that growth, the earlier we, put everything in one system, establish the way of working, establish the
Mhm.
audits,
Mhm.
set the standards, it's actually easier to do when there are few sites because the change management effort is very, simple. It's just handing out 4 phones
Yeah.
and they start using it, and then they push the pedal after that. So they kind of set up a, what do you call it, a digital playbook or a, point of sale, our compliance solution, purchase, things like that from the beginning.
Mhm.
Maybe it was a bit too much at that point, but they were really, the expansion was, really the thing for them. So once they had that in place, then they accelerated.
Yeah.
And we signed with them, started users in 2018, so maybe 2019, 5 sites, and now there are 70 sites.
Wow.
So that's a 1,400% growth or something like that over a couple
Yeah.
of years. And they actually opened their first burger joint in Manhattan 2 months ago.
Cool.
So they're really expanding, and I think just having that concept, and the brand promise or whatever you call it, regardless if it's food safety or opening hours or everybody has the right apron and the right T-shirt, having that really set, and then just really follow up on that.
Yeah, it
Uh,
really supports the scalability, right?
yeah, exactly. So that's their what they did really good, I think, was to define the brand and then execute on the brand and just do that.
Cool. Great. And again, if you could select one thing that they do really well with the tool, what would you say that would be?
I think it's the keep it simple, and that's it. I mean, it's everybody says that, but they're really, keeping the customer promise and the offering and the menu. It's they stick to what they do very well, and since they do that, you don't have to change that much in terms of how things are done. So they can adjust along the way, but they don't introduce new things on each restaurant. It's very centralized. They try it out, they do a small change in our software to see if that works, and then they roll it out and then take the next one. So really structured in the way they constantly change, but they do it very controlled and from a very defined template, you can say. So uh, that has also helped them a lot when it comes to recruiting. A lot of they have a kind of a cool brand, a bit of a punk.
Yeah.
signed up with some local artists from the north of Sweden. They're really good on building the brand towards customers or guests, as well as people working in a Basta Burger. So
Okay.
when someone is recruited that is young, they don't have to be so experienced in service, but they are very good using their phones. So it's
Yeah,
like the TikTok generation. So they get like the phone. This is what you're supposed to do. If you do this, you can kind of spend the rest of your time on your guests.
yeah. So it's
And that's
familiar. Feels
yeah, and
familiar.
that's what they expect, because the people they employ, they kind of carry around like a supercomputer in their pockets with their iPhones. So that's their private life, and then when they move to work, they don't want to downgrade. They want the same
Yeah, no, I
experience
love
at
that.
work. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's really cool. And those, I mean, great. Those are great examples, and I totally get that. It makes complete sense to me. But if you were to summarize everything, how does that look?
Yeah, it's I'll try. Of course, each business is different, and that's the whole idea with this system, that it can kind of adjust to how each brand works, because each brand is unique. But if I try to summarize it, this is once again a bit of a data nerd graph maybe. But on the left side of this, where it says 30%, that's the start of a typical rollout for us. So in this case, each of the green dots on this graph is a specific location or a site at a certain day that has a certain compliance score, meaning that if it's 100%, they've done all their tasks for that day. If it's 0%, they've done none of their tasks for that day. So, yeah, sorry, Harry.
No, that makes sense. No, I
Yeah,
was going to ask, how do you generally measure that ROI then once the compliance is in place?
yeah. It's just let me explain the graph, and I can go into that, because I
Sorry,
think
yeah,
that's the kind of the basis for it.
sure.
But on the left side of that, so that's when we launch. It's like we send out an email, a quick 5-point guide, maybe a short video clip that shows how the app works, and then it's like log in and start use it. And that's usually not a problem, because people are they know how mobile apps works. So as you can see on the left side where it says 100%, like something around the 20% of the sites, they just start using it right away, and they're 100% from day one. But then you have the majority, it doesn't go that quick. Maybe 0%, they start using it, but it starts to pick up. And then a bit into the process, you can see that the top 100% is dipping. So
Yeah,
it looks like it gets worse. And that's the effect of the region managers' audits, actually visiting the sites,
yeah,
measuring the quality of the local checks.
yeah.
And that, since that's done in the same system, you can see the result of the audits in the same place as the self checks. And
Yeah.
then the area manager can have a nice talk with the site manager and say, "Oh, I can see that you were 100% the last 4 weeks. But when during my audit, I saw that there were kind of dirty back of house, and you haven't really checked this and that." And that means that people start to get a bit more honest. And so the curve dipping at the top is when honesty kicks in. So,
Yeah.
it's kind of maybe I should be honest instead of just saying yes.
Yeah,
Uh,
because it's very difficult to be 100%, right?
yeah, and it's you can't really trust the site that is 100% over time, because that's
Yeah,
not really doable. I mean, it's never 100%.
yeah,
Something happens and someone is sick, and you get like 200 football fans coming in. I mean, you don't really focus on the compliance for that day.
yeah, that's
So
true.
you never have 100%. And then at the same time, you see on the downside of this, where things start to pick up, it's because everything is visible. So you will see that in my district or my region or my group, I'm on the bottom 2 out of 10, and nobody wants to be in the bottom of
No.
that top list. So it kind of generates this behavior that, okay, you need to be honest, but you also need to do your things. And that's when the kind of ROI kicks in, is at the end of this graph, where you get kind of a consistent execution of everything,
Yeah,
your
okay.
food safety, your campaigns. You have like the same view when you do audits. You can see that, okay, you got a 78% score on your audit, and actually matches what you think about your site as well.
Yeah, I was going to
Uh,
say you can start to really measure it, right? And actually see what the
Yeah, and act upon the things that, the dropouts or the real problems, the green dots that are not in this, the majority. Those are the ones where management need to spend more time. No, maybe you don't need to visit every site every week if they're consistently doing a good job. Maybe you should focus on the ones that need more help.
Yeah,
So
good.
that's kind of where ROI kicks in, is when you have a high and consistent use of the tool that you can trust. Then you
Mm,
can start all the fun stuff,
yeah,
automate, uh, make things better when it comes to how do you spend your time, yeah, all that. But it's kind of, you need to set the basics first.
yeah, interesting. Really insightful. I like that approach as well, keeping it simple, starting off with the basics. And then I think, we've discussed this before, that once technology is, or once people are using technology, and you've created a bit of a culture for it, then it's very easy to sort of build from that within the business, right?
Yeah, I mean, people. I don't know how many times Instagram gives you an app update, but nobody cares. I mean, you
No,
you
exactly.
just keep using it, and that's the same with any mobile tool that people are, used to. It changes and it gets better over time, and that's just the way it is. So
Yeah, great. No, it's very insightful. Okay, cool. I think we may have some questions, so let me just jump back here and have a quick look.
how are we doing on time? Yeah, a few minutes for that.
Okay,
Yes,
yeah,
good. Yep,
we've still got some time. Yeah. Okay, so we've got some questions here, Peder.
yep.
What sets compliance apart from a simple checklist app? I think it's
I
the
think it.
auditing, one of the
Yeah,
big
it's a
ones.
good question. I mean, of course, basically it does the same things when you pull it up in the morning. I mean, a checklist is a checklist, right? So, so that's on the face of it, no difference. But when you start to dig into the different areas that we cover, for example, like food safety, you depending on, of course, how mature you are, but you have the HACCP, you have the directive corrective action flows, you have things like that. There's a lot of things around food safety that
Yeah,
are, well, just a checklist is not really good enough. There are, you might be ISO, you might have alcohol licenses, things like that, that you
compliant.
really need to. It's important that you can show the logs, and they can do it in a good way. So it's, even though it might look like a simple checklist for the end user, that's of course a good thing. There is some more complexity around legal requirements that you want to have in place, I would say. So it's both yes and no. Yeah, it should be as easy as a checklist, but it should also be more, you know, configuration stuff that you need to do to
Yeah,
really comply to the laws.
and of course the auditing side of it as well,
Yeah,
right?
of course. Yeah,
And that built into the same app has got to be.
yeah. I mean, the audit is also a simple checklist, but you know, getting them to play together so that
Yeah,
when the audit is done, it results in actions for the site. You can track that centrally.
exactly.
Yeah, so it's still, it's simple checklists, but the engine under those checklists are a bit more complex.
Okay, cool. Great. Let me have a look.
Yeah.
What should organizations do to prepare for implementing compliance?
They should have like a good standardized concept. What do we call it? Like they should know how they want to work. If they know that, if they have like this clear vision of this is how I know how to launch a site, I
Mhm.
know how to onboard an employee, I know how to, then it's kind of prime for digitalizing your business. If you're not sure, pen and paper is great for tryout. I mean, it's very easy to change.
Okay, cool. Well, this is a good one. What kind of health and safety issues does compliance address?
Yeah, this might become a bit boring for operational people, but
We
it's
start talking about HACCP now.
yeah, it's all these, you have the risk assessments, you have the critical control points that need to
Yeah.
have different steps to document. Maybe if temperature is not okay, that is more critical than that you don't have an opening sign on the door that says at what time you open. So it's about configuring those part of the system are a bit more complex to configure because food safety is a bit more complex than checking if a campaign is in place and did I get the right promotion material. If you miss on that, maybe it's important because you lose some revenue. But if you're on the food safety side, it's more like you lose your license or it's a different. complexity in that.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Another one here. Is there a limit to the amount of sites that compliance can manage?
Good question. I hope that I will find out one day, but so far I haven't. I think it's about 4,000 sites are using it today. And our
Okay.
largest customer have about 900 sites.
Okay. Wow.
So I mean, it's like any other cloud solution that it's very scalable. So it's not really we use Microsoft to host in the solution. So it's more about turning up the Microsoft bill and the Microsoft server dial to host more sites. So I think not is the and I haven't seen any limits yet to that.
Okay. Good. Great. Let me see. I think quite a few of these questions have already been answered. Um, should an operator invest in compliance before, during, or after a period of extended growth?
Well, I think looking back at the, I would have said like, okay, it's good if you asked me 3 4 years ago, I said, okay, it's better you have started the growth pattern and then you digitize.
Yeah.
But after working with Basta Burgers, I'm actually inclined to say, okay, quite early, given that you have that mindset, because it's actually, of course, it's easier to set a digital tool in the hands of 4 restaurants or 5 than 180. So,
Yeah. Fair.
so if you have the concept defined and everything is kind of, you're sure about what you're doing, then you're ready. And that could be 5 sites or it could be 50 sites. I don't know, but
Okay.
so when you know when you're ready. I don't know what to say.
Yeah,
It's
exactly. You know when you need
if
to.
I ask you, okay, could you give me the checklist for opening and closing in front of her back of house, and say, of course. If you get that in 5 seconds, then you're ready. If it's like, well, let me see, where is that version, the latest version? I have to check with that guy. You're
Yeah.
probably not ready.
No, you're probably not. Okay. Good. Fair answer. I think maybe time for one more. How many different checklists and organizational systems can compliance replace?
Oh, that's a really good question because
Yeah.
it's not really up to me to answer because the system is. I mean, how many different documents can you write in Microsoft Office?
How many
It's like,
different folders do you have on your
yeah,
shelf?
yeah, it's like it's up to you. So, I mean, within it's our super users define that themselves. So they create like a food safety module, fire safety, workplace safety, whatever kind of certifications they need to track. So they kind of build their own system based on the structure that we have. So I think I'm thinking about which customer using it the most. I'll say 5 or 6 different systems.
Hmm.
Uh, it's because they usually also integrate with their IT stuff, so they can kind of do that. So I think I don't really know the answer to that. Each yeah,
Each operator is going to be different, right?
yeah, and they create their own processes in our tool. So it's up to I don't it's not it's like you don't call Microsoft to get help to write a new document. You do it yourself.
Yeah,
So it's
sure.
yeah.
Fair. Okay, I think we've got a couple of quick fire ones before we go. Can pictures be uploaded? For example, the area of the location platform is being used. Are there any limits?
Yeah, no, it's just like you would expect from any mobile. You take a picture and that's it. It's sent to the server, and server space is not expensive. So there are no limits on
So no
pictures or
limits,
videos or
and you
whatever.
can.
Yeah, and pictures I use quite a lot actually, especially
Yeah, I was
for
going to say.
yeah, like tomorrow I want to see. Hopefully, well, we won't see this again. But a year ago, like I want to take a photo of the COVID floor markers. Tomorrow I want to see that everybody has done that. Those
Mhm.
kind of quick things where you need a visual on it. That's really useful to
Yeah,
kind of
okay.
send out tasks like that and get the response back as photos from each site.
And be able to check the consistency of
Yeah,
it.
exactly. It could be campaigns or it could be whatever
Yeah,
promotions.
yeah, of
Yeah.
course, yeah. Does the app geotag the location and timestamp?
It timestamps. It does not geotag because of GDPR
Okay.
at the moment, because we had some concerns about that with the unions. So it's not a technical.
No,
We can switch on that,
it's a
but
legality. Yeah.
yeah, it's legality. So it might do. It might be something that we today we can't separate that per country, but maybe we should. Maybe it's different from different countries. It's
Yeah,
actually
okay, cool.
good input. but there'll be some union resistance to that.
Yeah, cool. Great. Listen, Peter, unfortunately, we've run out of time. It's been great speaking to you.
Thank you, Harry.
Thank you so much for joining, and thank you, everybody, for joining and watching the webinar. If you've got any questions or if you'd like to reach out to us, both Peter and I are on LinkedIn, and we'd be happy to answer any questions or have any conversations around the compliance application by MAPAL. And I think for that, it's for me to say thank you very much. And hopefully I'll see you in Stockholm soon for a nice gourmet burger.
You will. The weather will be better at that time, I promise.
Yeah,
Not -6. Yeah.
Yeah, great. Brilliant. Great,
Cool.
Peter. Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Have a
much,
great
Harry.
day, everybody. Cheers. Bye-bye.